angry cloud marched across the sky. The butterfly danced in the wind. Oh, wait, that is not what I meant. The subjects in these pictures seem to be doing things that human beings do. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my new series about literary devices. And as you might have already guessed, today we are going to talk about personification. Did the images in the beginning seem silly to you? Me too. Let's look at them again. The angry cloud marched across the sky. Can you imagine how funny it would be if clouds actually started to get angry like human beings and started to march across the sky to show their disagreement? Or if butterflies actually started to perform a dance routine in the wind? I know, right? But we use these kinds of sentences where we attribute human qualities and actions like anger and dancing in this case onto non-human creatures or things in our daily lives. We will discuss this in detail, but let us first look at some examples from common or everyday parlance. The food was calling to me. Here, food is making a human action. It is calling. So, this is an example of personification. Let's look at another one. An amazing opportunity was knocking at my door. Here, opportunity is a non-human entity. It is an abstract idea, but it is making a human action of knocking at the door. Again, this is an example of personification. Let us look at one final example. The sun was glaring down at me. Here, sun is acting like a human being and glaring. Glaring means looking at something with anger. So again, it is a human action which is being done by a non-human entity like the sun. So this is an example of personification. Now that we looked at some examples, let's try to understand what we mean by personification. Personification is a figure of speech that attributes human qualities or actions to non-human entities. It means that personification is a sort of a decorative language which attributes. Attribute means assigns or associates human qualities or actions to non-human entities or things. Let me explain this with an example. The angry waves washed the seashore. Here, the waves are non-human thing, but they are described as being angry, which is a human emotion, because non-human things do not get angry. So we see how a human emotion is attributed to the waves, which are non-human being. So this is an example of personification. Let's look at another one. The huge waves mocked the weak ship. Here, again, the huge waves are non-human, but they are mocking. Now, mocking is a human action, but it is attributed to the waves. Therefore, it is an example of personification. In both the above examples, waves are being personified by attributing human qualities, emotions, or actions to them. Now, the second point. It is a kind of a figurative language. It means that the meanings are not literal, they are not real. The meanings are imaginary. Let me show you one example. The moon winked at me through the clouds. Here, the moon is winking at the speaker. So it is obviously a human action which is impossible in real life. Moon can't wink at you. So the meaning of this sentence is not literal because moon is not literally winking at the speaker. It's barely just sparkling. Now that we've discussed personification as a literary device, let's find out its functions. Why do we use personification? Personification describes inanimate objects using human qualities and actions which are more familiar and relatable to the reader. This eases the imagination of the unfamiliar thing. Let's look at an example to understand this. The lightning danced in the sky. Here, lightning, which is a natural phenomena, it's a non-human entity, it's being described as dancing in the sky, just like a human being. This attribution of a human quality makes it easier for us to imagine how bouts of lightning would spread across the sky in various patterns. The next function is to spark the reader's imagination. It helps the reader to create a mental picture of the thing being described. It makes the description more vivid, relatable, and interesting. This grasps the reader's attention. Let's consider an example here. The wind blew in the night. Here, wind is simply being described as blowing, which is a common verb associated with wind. Now let's take a look at this example. The wind howled in the night. Here, the wind is described as howling. Howling means crying out loud in the night. It is, of course, a human action, but notice how the use of this personification makes it easier for us to imagine what kind of loud winds are blowing. This attribution of a human quality also makes the description more vivid and more interesting. Let's come to the third use of personification. Personification helps represent abstract concepts through colorful language. Let's understand this using an example. The old memory slowly strangled her as she struggled to breathe. Here, memories, which are a non human thing, are displaying a human action. They are strangling someone. Strangling means to choke someone by pressing their throat with force. The unique attribution of the human action of strangling helps us imagine how painful and incredibly suffocating the memories must be for her. It helps us imagine a very common everyday thing in a new manner. So, personification can help the readers experience the writing by creating an immersive experience for the audience. Now, let us analyze some examples from literary texts. Arise, fair sun, and kill the envious moon, who is already sick and pale with grief. This is an extract from the play Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare. Here, the poet is talking about the moon by saying that it is sick and pale with grief. Now, all these are human qualities because the moon cannot be sad like a human being. It cannot be sick with grief. Therefore, it is a clear example of personification. Let's take a look at another example. The fog comes on little cat feet by Carl Sandburg. Here, the writer is talking about fog, which is a non-human entity, but it comes on its little cat feet. Now, of course, it is not possible for the fog to approach like a cat, neither does it have any feet. So, all these features are an example of personification of the fog. Now that we have analyzed some examples from prose, let us move on to poetry. The teapot sang as the water boiled, the ice cubes cackled in their glass, the teacups chattered to one another, while the chairs were passing gas. This is an extract from the poem Dinnertime Chorus by Sharon Hendricks. In this example, the teapot is singing, the ice cubes are cackling, the teacups are chattering amongst themselves, and the chairs are passing gas. All these are human actions that are attributed to these non-human things. So this is an excellent example of personification. Let's take a look at one last example now. I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately, just as it is, unmisted by love or dislike. I am not cruel, only truthful. This is an extract from a very famous poem called Mirror by Sylvia Plath. This poem is written from the perspective of a mirror. It refers to itself repeatedly as I. Look at the underlined portions here. It says that it doesn't have any preconceptions or prior notions. It swallows things. You will also notice the words cruel or truthful. All these are human traits and actions that are ascribed to the mirror, which is a non-human entity. This is therefore an excellent example of personification where the mirror is personified. So these were some examples from literary texts containing personified entities. Now here are some more examples from famous literary texts. You can pause the video here and try to find out the examples of personification in these lines. So this was all about personification and its examples. Now let's discuss what we mean by anthropomorphism. Let's break down this word anthropomorphism into smaller chunks. Anthropos, which means human, morph, which means form or shape, ism, which means system or practice. So, anthropomorphism is a system or practice of assigning human form or shape to inanimate or non-human things. So, anthropomorphism means the attribution of human qualities, emotions, and actions to non-human things. But doesn't this sound very similar to personification? Yes, they're almost similar, but there's a difference between the two. Let's check this out. Personification is a kind of figurative language. Anthropomorphism is not. This means that personification is a literary device. It is a sort of a decorative or fancy language that we use to make a writing more interesting, like I told you. Anthropomorphism is not a linguistic device. It has nothing to do with language. It has to do with the creation of characters that are non human but they behave like human beings. In personification, the attributed human qualities carry a figurative or a non literal meaning, meaning that the meanings of any personified entity is not real. But in anthropomorphism, the non human entities actually do human things like talking, falling in love, wiggling their eyebrows, and generally behaving like human beings. This means that when we say that a feather is dancing, we just mean that it is swirling in the air, it's floating about. This is an example of personification. But in anthropomorphism, the feather will actually have legs and arms and it will dance in the air just like a living being. Now take a look at these pictures. I'm sure you're familiar with Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Donald Duck. All these are example of anthropomorphism because they all act like human beings. They are non-human beings, but they act like human beings. Their actions are literal. So it's not just a decorative language that we are using to describe them, but they are actually doing human things. In personification, we would not mean that they actually behave like human beings. It's just a way of talking where the meanings are not literal. So that was it for this video. Now I'll leave you with a fun video. Try to identify as many examples of personification as you can from it. Have fun and thank you so much for watching.